bow before him. Open up the gates. Open up the gates. Make way before the King of Kings. The God who comes to save is here to set the captives free. Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Our God is the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power. He's fighting our battles. Every knee will bow before him. 'Cause our God is the Lamb that was slain for the sins of the world. His blood breaks the chains. Every knee will bow before the Lion in the Lamb. Every knee will bow before him. Let's sing it together. Who can stop it? Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord? Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord? Sing our God. 'Cause our God is a Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power. He's fighting our battles. Every knee will bow before him. 'Cause our God is the Lamb that was slain for the sins of the world. His blood breaks the chains. Every knee will bow before the Lion in the Lamb. Every knee will bow before him. Let's all pray together. Father, you're welcome here. Lord, you're welcome in this room. You're welcome with your people, Lord. God, we thank you that we've been bought by a price. Father, we thank you that you made a way that only you can make, Lord. And now you call us sons and daughters. Father, we thank you that you made a way for us. Father, it's so simple. It's not of anything that we've done, any works, any good works that we've done, Father. But it's all because of you. It's your righteousness, Jesus, that makes us worthy, that makes us in right standing before the Father. Lord, I just pray that you would bring us into a deeper understanding of, Father, the cost, the lengths and ways that you went. And Father, just a deeper understanding of who you say that we are, Jesus. Father, bless this time in Jesus' name.
He brought me in.
guys have been walking in, and you guys have things that need to go to the foot of the cross. If you guys walked in with a load that the Lord is calling you to put at his feet, just to surrender. Let's just take some time. Just in your own words, just pray in your heart or out loud and say, Father, I'm just laying these things down. Father, we're laying them down right now. Lord, you didn't call us to carry these burdens. So Lord, we want to pick up your yoke, Lord. Because your yoke is easy. Your burden is light. Let's just humble ourselves right now before the Lord. We bow our hearts, we bend our knees. Oh Spirit, come make us humble. We turn our eyes from evil things. Oh Lord, we cast down our idols. We bow our hearts, we bend our knees. Oh Spirit, come make us humble. We turn our eyes from evil things. Oh Lord, we cast down our idols. So give us clean hands, give us pure hearts. Let us not lift our souls to another. So give us clean hands, give us pure hearts. Let us not lift our souls to another. So we bow. us pure hearts. Let us not lift our souls to another. Give us clean hands, give us pure hearts. Let us not lift our souls to another. Oh God, let us be a generation that seeks your face. Oh God of Jacob. Oh God, let us be a generation that seeks your face. Oh God of Jacob, God of Jacob.
Hi guys, I hope you're all doing well. In case you hadn't noticed, I'm not Pastor Randy. Pastor Randy's not feeling so hot today, so Pastor Randy and Kelly are staying home and getting some well-deserved rest, so they send their love and they wish they could be here, but hopefully a couple days of rest will be good for them. A fair warning for you guys is that, well, if you haven't noticed, I'm using the pulpit, and on Wednesday nights, Pastor Randy doesn't usually use the pulpit, and that's because, well, Pastor Randy has warned me that you guys keep buckets of rotten fruit in the back to throw at speakers if they start to go off course or something, so I need a little extra protection because I'm a nervous public speaker. But that being said, we're going to go through a study tonight. It's going to be a little different. We're going to take a break through the book of Proverbs, and we're going to go do something different tonight, just since Pastor Andy's not here, and it was kind of a last minute throw together kind of a sermon. But I just wanted to give you a quick announcement, like as far as the rest of the week is concerned. The rest of the services are as usual. There's no Women of the Word or Engage or Ironworks. It's just Foundation Youth Group on Friday night at 6:30 and then Sunday morning at 10 o'clock here. And Pastor Randy did say that we have a special announcement on Sunday, so if you guys are around, you're going to want to pop in. So we're excited about that. As I said, we're going to be taking a break from the book of Proverbs. We're going to be in Nehemiah tonight. And my cross-reference is in the book of Philippians. So if you want to stick your bookmark in Philippians, you can do that. We will pop over there eventually. But I want to do kind of a topical study, and I want to use Nehemiah as the text that we're going to go into. And I'm not going to dive too deeply into the history of Nehemiah because there's a lot there, and we're going to look at some practical application points for us tonight. So we're going to kind of breeze through a little bit. So if I miss a couple of your favorite points, please don't be offended. There's a lot of great verses in here. I was reading today, and I was like, where do I make this line? What do I cut? Because I just love the book of Nehemiah. So for starters, in Nehemiah chapter 1, let's read the first 4 verses. The words of Nehemiah, the son of Hakaliah. It came to pass in the month of Chislev, in the 20th year, as I was in Shushan, the citadel, that Hanani, one of the brethren, came with men from Judah, and I asked them concerning the Jews who had escaped, who had survived the captivity, and concerning Jerusalem. And they said to me, the survivors who are left from the captivity in the province are there in great distress and reproach. The wall of Jerusalem is also broken down, and its gates are burned with fire. So it was, when I heard these words, that I sat down and wept and mourned for many days, for I was fasting and praying before the Lord God of heaven. So Nehemiah received some troubling news, and it crushed him. It broke him. He was just so hurt to hear this. He saw the condition of his home and the heart of his people, and he was just, again, he was broken. He was aware of what was going on, and he wasn't being blinded. And unfortunately, so many of us today, we've become numb to the world around us and the conditions of the world and the heartbreaking stuff that goes on a daily basis around us. But this was right in his face, and Nehemiah saw the condition of the people and the condition of the city, and it just broke his heart. As I was preparing for this, it was near and dear to me because, as many of you guys know, I've grown up as a missionary in Ukraine, and for years they've kind of been in this up and down battle with Russia, and I got to be there when that first came up, and to see the cities. I remember the main city of Kyiv was on fire. And it just, they had a live feed, and you could watch it, and you could just see the city burning, and it was such a heartbreaking thing to see. these people suffering and hurting, and the city that you knew and loved in wreckage, and it's just kind of hard to see. So it was kind of near and dear to my heart when I was reading through this and picturing this. But the point that I want to get at here is that sin should shock us. It should offend us. When we see that in the world, it should get our attention and get us to perk up and say, this isn't right. We need to respond to this. So how did Nehemiah respond? We see here that he mourned and that he prayed and that he fasted before the Lord. And as we continue, we're going to go into the second chapter now. But notice verse 11 says that he was the king's cupbearer. Again, I'm not going to go into too much depth here because most of you are very familiar with the story of Nehemiah, but that plays a significant part in his role here. So in Nehemiah chapter 2, let's go ahead and read the first 2 verses of chapter 2. And it came to pass in the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, when wine was before him, that I took the wine and gave it to the king. Now I had never been sad in his presence before. Therefore the king said to me, why is your face sad, since you are not sick? This is nothing but sorrow of heart. So, I'm sure most of you guys are aware, being a cupbearer, you didn't want him to be sad, because the cupbearer's job was to try the king's wine before he had it and to make sure that it wasn't poisoned. So you see the guy who tested your wine before he's serving it to you, and he's like, here's your wine, and he's got this really just broken face and not looking too well. I mean, he's probably really stressed out. He's been mourning, which, the Bible is clear that it's not just like crying and I'm bummed out. It's just this intense depression, this mourning, this heaviness. And so he's wearing it on his face, and he serves the king his wine, and he looks and he's like, you're not looking too good. Is there something you want to tell me? I'm a little discouraged right now. So let's see, how did he respond to the king? Oh, I forgot as well. In the end of verse 2 there, let's start off from there. So I became dreadfully afraid and said to the king, may the king live forever. Why should my face not be sad when the city, the place of my father's tombs, lies waste and its gates are burned with fire? Nehemiah was given an opportunity. He was given an open door to talk to the king, and this wasn't something that happened with everybody. The fact that he was upset before the king serving his wine could have cost him his life, or at least his position, if nothing else. But instead the king said, talk to me. What's going on? I want to know. Open up a little bit. And so he was bold, and he shared what's on his heart. He said, why shouldn't I be upset? Do you know what's going on at my home? Do you know what's going on? Do you see the things that I've seen? Let me tell you about the pain. Let's read verse 4. Then the king said to me, what do you request? So I prayed to the God of heaven. What an awesome window, again, that Nehemiah was given. And he didn't jump the gun. He didn't say, oh, well, I'm just going to start rambling on. As I said, I'm a nervous speaker. So a tendency for nervous speakers is to speak very quickly and to just kind of mumble and mutter and, kind of stutter. We don't see that with Nehemiah. We see that he prayed. He said, God, speak. I want it to be your words. I don't want it to be mine. This is your message that you've given me. This is something that you've put on my heart. And he responded with that. God had laid a vision on his heart, and he wanted to make sure it was the Lord speaking and not his broken heart. Let's read verses 5 and 6. And I said to the king, if it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor in your sight, I ask that you send me to Judah, to the city of my father's tombs, that I may rebuild it. Then the king said to me, the queen also sitting beside him, how long will your journey be, and when will you return? So it pleased the king to send me, and I set him a time. Nehemiah was obedient to the Lord. The Lord opened a door. He was bold. He followed through that door with prayer and mourning before the Lord, but he was given this opportunity, and he was faithful with that opportunity. We're going to stop digging into the history from there, and we're going to look into a little bit more application now. That was a pretty dramatic step for Nehemiah to do that. And what was it that moved Nehemiah to be so bold? I don't think it was that he had too much coffee that day. It was in his heart. He was moved. It was vision. God had given Nehemiah the vision for what he wanted to do. for what God wanted to do through Nehemiah. And that's what we're going to be focusing on tonight. We're going to be looking at vision, what it means to have vision. How do we go about pursuing the vision that God gives us? So to start tonight, I want to look at the what. Let's define vision. What is vision? What does that mean? I'm going to give you 7 different definitions or descriptions of visions, and these are all direct quotes from Andy Stanley. I love Andy Stanley's writings, very, very good. So these are direct quotes from him. But the first quote is, "Visions are born in the soul of a man or woman who is consumed by the tension between what is and what could be." We see that in Nehemiah. He was torn. He could feel that tension, and he saw what could be. Our second definition here, description. Vision often begins with the inability to accept things the way they are. Over time, that dissatisfaction matures into a clear picture of what could be. The next one, the third one, is vision is more than feeling like something could be done. Vision is when you see something that should be done. And that's important. You know, there's a lot of things that could be done, but is this something that God is telling me, this has to happen, this needs to happen? And that's part of the definition of a vision. This should be done. Our fourth point is vision stands in contrast to the world as it is. That's a hard one because the world can be a scary place. But vision it stands in contrast to what the world is. You know, God says that we should not be conformed to the ways of this world, but that we should be transformed by the renewing of our minds. You know, we ought to be separate from the world. People ought to look at us and say, there's something different about that person. What is going on in their heart? The fifth point is vision requires someone to champion the cause. You know, in our story here, Nehemiah is that champion, but God has a vision, and what a blessing it is that God wants to use us to carry out those visions. So when God gives you that vision and asks you to pursue it, and he says, I want you to lead this. What a privilege that is, what an honor, especially for Nehemiah here. And then our sixth point is vision demands change. And we're going to dig a little bit more into that one as we get into the text, but that's a really big one, and that's another bold statement that the world doesn't like to hear. Vision demands change. So we've looked a little bit at what vision means, some definitions of vision. But the next point here is how. How do we go about seeking that vision? How do we receive that vision? How do we know that this is a vision from the Lord? You know, our minds like to play games on us and say, oh, is this the Lord speaking to me? Is this me? And so we want to look a little bit into that. The first point in our how is vision begins as a concern. Something that concerns us. It should move us. It should tear us up in our heart and say, I'm concerned. There's a problem here. This isn't how it should be. Nehemiah had a strong concern. But I want to point out a couple of things about Nehemiah. One, he didn't allow his concern to hinder him from his daily duties. You know, and that can be a tendency for some of us. We have this concern, we see something that needs to be done, and we can try to drop everything that we're doing right now to pursue that thing. And God wants us to take our time. And we're going to look at that as well. But we have responsibilities. You know, pretty much every one of us in this room is responsible to do something, right? And how does it look for us as Christians if we just drop everything that we're doing every day? You know, we have these responsibilities. If God says, hey, I really want you to, pray about this opportunity. Awesome, Lord. I'm going to stay home from work and I'm just going to pray for 8 hours straight. If God has given you that position at work and you have responsibilities there, he wants you to be faithful to that. He wants you to be faithful, a testimony to the people that you work with. But Nehemiah didn't throw away the vision either and forget about it and say, I'm too busy. I've got these other responsibilities, so I'm just going to continue about my day-to-day. I'm going to get caught up into the mundane just circuit that is life, which is so easy to get into that. There's that consistency. This is my life. This is my habits. This is my pattern. And sometimes we don't allow room for God to work or to speak within that cycle that can be our lives. Nehemiah showed great wisdom. The next point that I want to get here is that vision does not necessarily require immediate action. And that's an important one. A common misconception of our vision is that we need to act now. It's a right now thing, right now, take it or leave it. Or, sometimes it's just we get excited. And that's awesome. God wants us to be excited about the things that he's doing in our lives, the visions that he's putting on our hearts. Vision rarely requires immediate action, but it always requires patience. And that's a big life nugget, for all of us is patience. It's difficult, but when God gives us a vision, a lot of times it's going to take him some time to work it out. As I was studying and I was preparing, I was looking at examples, and actually it was Andy Stanley again, and he said that the time needed for that vision could be anywhere between 4 days to 40 years. You look at the nation of Israel and all that God had to do in their lives, the things that they had to endure, and the times where they just had to wait patiently on the Lord for him to deliver them from their bondage or whatever they were caught up in those moments. So vision isn't always an immediate thing, so we need to be patient. If we rush into things, we can get hurt. An example of that could be, let's say you just got saved, a missionary comes and they share about their experience in the mission field, and you're just excited. You're a new Christian and you're just so excited, and you hear about this missionary and you're like, that's awesome, I want to do that. So then the next day you sell all your stuff and you move over to the other side of the world. That might be considered rushing into a little bit. There's nothing wrong with taking time and saying, God, I want to seek this. I want to really hear from you. I want to know and I want to grow. And that's the next point of application that we have here. The next section of our study, if you will, is, why do we need to wait? Why is it important for us to wait before pursuing the vision that God has given us? And I'm going to give you 3 good reasons for us to wait before we just dive headfirst into what the Lord is laying on our heart. Why to be patient. The first one is that vision matures in us. The vision has to mature. It has to grow. We have to spend time and nurture it and take care of it and see, okay, Lord, you could say, okay, start a church. That's a very broad statement, right? Okay, Lord, let's take some time and let's dig into that. Where would you like me to start the church? Who are the people that are going to fill this church? God, let's take some time and pray for the people out there that right now that might be looking for a church in Greer, South Carolina, or whatever it is. And so you have this vision, but it takes time for it to grow and for you to see some of the practical things come out of it. So you have to take some time and really just pray those things over and watch it grow. Not every good idea is a vision, but visions do start as ideas. So we do need to consider that. As well, not every burden is a vision. We have lots of burdens in this life, and not every single one of them is a vision directly from the Lord, but visions do start as burdens. And God does use burdens. He places these burdens on our heart, and he says, I'm moving you. I want you to listen and wait and be patient as I grow this vision in you. Because we should be burdened in our hearts. It shouldn't be like, I know that's an awful thing, but, who's going to take care of it? We should be like, God, this isn't okay. We can't leave this the way it is. We should desire for change in our world. And a key opponent that works against us here as we're trying to nail down that vision and trying to grow it and to mature it is our emotions. And that's another good reason that we take time, because our emotions can send us on these roller coasters up and down, and sometimes it's really exciting, and if you're going to pursue a vision every time you're really excited, then you could be in some really interesting circumstances. And on the other side of that roller coaster, if every time your vision gets attacked and you go down and you get discouraged and upset, you go, oh God, I'm just facing so much opposition. Is this really from you? God, it doesn't feel good. There's going to be a lot of times when we're pursuing visions where we don't feel great. You can think of the example of a child that's growing in the womb, and what a precious picture that is. But when you're 10 weeks pregnant, you don't say, oh, I can't wait. Let's just take the baby out now and let's spend time with our sweet baby. It's because the baby hasn't matured yet. The baby hasn't grown and isn't strong enough to survive out in the real world at that state. And so there is that nurturing time where that baby grows and gets strong and eventually is ready. And we're the same way. Sometimes we need that time to grow and to seek the Lord until we're ready to face the world that's out there. Because if we're being honest with ourselves, we want our vision to survive in the real world, but the real world is really hard on our visions. The real world is a tough place. I can think of when I was little, and there would be Most of the time when I got punished, I deserved it. But there'd be times where like I knew that my parent was wrong, and I was like, well, Dad, that's not fair. I actually wasn't the one who, hit my brother. It was my sister or whatever, and I knew that I was right, but I was still getting punished. And I would say, Dad, that's not fair. And my dad would say, well, life's not fair. And I thought he was being harsh. But the truth is that's the world that we live in, and sometimes it's not fair. And the world doesn't play by our rules. And so we do want our vision to mature and to be strong enough to survive out in the world. Vision tells us that things are not okay left the way they are, and there needs to be change. And that's another hard truth for the world. The world does not like change, especially when it comes from the pulpit. In order for a vision to survive, it must mature and be healthy enough to survive. You guys remember Blockbuster? I loved going to Blockbuster. After he was offered to buy Netflix for $50 million, Blockbuster CEO Jim Keyes said, "Neither Redbox nor Netflix are even on the radar screen in terms of competition." How'd that work out for him? Netflix and Redbox, they were ready to respond. They were ready to survive. They had prepared, and they knew that they had giants to go up against. Because who would mess with Blockbuster? Blockbuster's always going to be here. How do you compete with that? But they were bold, and they stood up against the big names. And sometimes when we pursue our visions, there are big names that come up, and it can be discouraging when we hear our vision getting attacked from these big names and people that we respect too. But has God given you that vision? Again, another reason for us to just take time and to pray and to seek, so that if you've taken that time and you've asked yourself these questions and you know in your heart, God, this is something that you're moving in my heart. When somebody comes up and they share with you and they say, hey, I don't think God wants you to do this, then you can sit down and say, let me show you what God has shown me. Let me show you what God is doing in my life and the reasons that I believe this. And, be willing to hear them, but talk about it and say, look, I've taken the time and I've prepared for this. So the first reason that we should wait before acting too strongly on our vision is that our vision needs to mature. The second reason that we should wait is that we need to mature in preparation for the vision. You and I need to grow. There's an example of a child that wants to fit in her mother's wedding dress. When she's 7 years old, she doesn't physically fit into that dress, right? So there's some growing that needs to happen. And so she has this vision, this picture, I want to get married. And that picture might look something different at 7 years old. Maybe I'll be riding in on a chariot, and there'll be angels singing as I'm coming in, and we'll have a dog that's got the rings coming up, and whatever. It could have a 7-year-old child. Their mind doesn't look at a wedding and what goes into a wedding the way that an adult looks at a wedding, right? And so as she grows and she gets to a place where it's like, hey, I can fit into this dress. That's awesome. But she should also not be looking at it like, okay, I'm going to be riding in on my chariot and there's going to be the angels singing in the background. As she grows, as her vision grows, she should also be growing and maturing to fit in the real world better. Yesterday, the staff here got to go to the Billy Graham Library. And I'd never been. I didn't even know that it was a thing, to be honest, because I grew up in Ukraine. And it was really awesome. I had no idea what to expect going into it, but I was excited. And it was a really sweet time, good time of fellowship. And it was just awesome to see how the Lord had used Billy Graham. But somebody showed me like a week ago, they showed me a clip of Billy Graham, and he said, my son spoke to me his first word, and he came up and he said, Dada. And he said, I was, me and his mother were thrilled to hear him say Dada. But imagine 20 years from now, he comes up to me and he says, Dada. I'm not going to be as thrilled to hear that, right? Why? Because it is his desire that as his child grows, that his child would mature and would learn how to handle the world and would get past the dada point and be able to make it in this world. And that's our goal, every one of us as parents, right? Is that we want to prepare our children for the world that's out there and for life on their own. We should always be seeking to grow. And that's why, if you would please turn to Philippians chapter 3. When you're there, we're going to read verse 12. Not that I have already attained or am already perfected, but I press on, that I may lay hold of that for which Christ Jesus has also laid hold of me. Paul says here, he said, I'm not perfect. I don't think that I've hit that, okay, this is the max growing level. I haven't hit that, but I keep pressing on. I want to lay hold for that which Jesus Christ has laid hold on me. We should desire to grow. The Bible says that Jesus increased in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man. Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, your mind, your soul, your strength. Well, what does that mean to love the Lord your God with all your mind? It means that we should be growing. It means that we should be seeking to improve our understanding of him and his love, and to grow closer to him by doing that. We should have a greater understanding today of his word than we did 20 years ago, right? Or are we coming to him still going, da-da? And that's a sweet time. But there comes a time where God wants to use you on bigger levels than the da-da moments. So as our vision matures, we also ought to be growing in maturity. The third encouragement here for why it's important to take some time to be patient is that God is at work behind the scenes, and he's preparing the way. If God gave you a vision, it's his vision first and foremost. And sometimes we like to put ourselves in the driver's seat, but we forget to take a step back and say, you know what? I'm really excited about this. I'm pumped up. There's this vision that's, God has given me, and there's things that he wants to do in my life. But he sees this even bigger picture, and as excited as I am, God's got to be even more excited because he sees all the things that he wants to do in my life. It's easy for us to forget about that. I remember when I was younger, we were on public transport in Ukraine, and for us as kids, it was exciting to be able to call out, "Stop at the bus stop!" And so we always would fight over who gets to say "stop at the bus stop." And I remember we were going to the park, and I asked my mom, "Can I say stop at the bus stop when we get to the bus stop?" And she said, "No." And I was like, "Okay." And then we got to the bus stop, and bad boy that I was, I go, "Stop at the bus stop." And they stopped at the bus stop, and we got off, and mom was upset with me, and then mom tells me, "Your sister's not feeling well. There's a stop that the next stop would have been closer to the park." And so the reason that I told you don't say stop at the bus stop was because I had it planned for us to, reduce her uncomfortableness. I was pretty, feeling down. I was disappointed with myself, and the point is that I didn't see that bigger picture. My mom had an understanding. She had a plan. This is where we're going. We're going to go here. We're going to do everything that we can so that the boys can have fun, but that their sister can feel comfortable and not be miserable while we're at the park. She had this bigger picture to try to make it, the best time at the park as she could. And I jumped into the driver's seat, and I took that away. And that's what we do is, sometimes we stumble and we say, "Oh God, I'm so excited. And, it's not a bad heart, but we get ahead of the Lord, and we forget that he's behind the scenes orchestrating everything, and he's watching, and he's in control. He knows what's going on. He knows better than we do. It's a lot like dancing. I love dancing. Me and my family, we used to go swing dancing a lot. Rachel and I, that was one of the first things that we used to do together was go swing dancing. And, I've had really good partners, and I've had really difficult partners. And the thing with at least swing dancing is, there's supposed to be one person leading and the other person is supposed to follow. And I have been in moments when I'm leading and the person that I'm dancing with wants to lead. And so it gets confusing and awkward. And then I danced with someone who had never swing danced before. And she understood going into it. She's like, "Okay, I'm just supposed to follow. You know what you're doing." And she literally just didn't do anything to stop me. She's just like, "Okay, just, however you want to spin me." And she had never swing danced before, and she danced amazingly. And it was, again, that picture of, if we're working in unison with God and say, "You know what? I trust you. You're in the lead. I just want to follow. I want to go through and, see the awesome things that you're going to do." But we have to remember that God is in the driver's seat, and we need to leave him that power. And the next important step that I want to look at, the next section here, is authenticating the vision. We want to know that this is really God's will, God speaking into my heart. We want to be able to tell the difference between what's a good idea and what's a God idea. Because Nehemiah wasn't, surely he wasn't the only Jew who was upset about the situation, right? You think of all the people and the suffering that was going on, and just like I'm not the only one who's upset about, the people in Ukraine and what's going on there. There's lots of people that are experiencing that. Nehemiah wasn't the only Jew who was looking at Jerusalem and the state of the people and saying, this isn't okay. Somebody's got to do something. There's lots of people, surely, that were moved. And, if you study further into Nehemiah, you'll see him meeting such people and recruiting them and bringing them along in his vision. Again, we don't really have the time to go into that much depth because there's so much in the book of Nehemiah. But how did he know that God had given him the vision, that God was calling him to be the champion, to pursue this vision? Or was it just him coming up with good ideas like, hey, you know what? The walls are down, let's build up walls. It's a good idea, right? So how do you know? And I definitely struggle with that, of questioning the Lord, second-guessing myself. Did you really say that to me, Lord? Is that just me getting too excited? Oh, do you really want me to go there? Did I make a mistake? And it's easy to second-guess ourselves and to go through that vicious cycle. But here are 2 points that can help us to distinguish between the good ideas and the God ideas. The first one is that a God-ordained vision will eventually feel like a moral imperative. I'm going to read that one again. A God-ordained vision will eventually feel like a moral imperative. Just going back to that definition we used earlier, we said that it's more than what could be. This vision that we feel, it's something that we feel like this should be. This has to happen. And we're not just going to sit by and watch it wash away. We say, you know what, God, I feel so strongly that you've laid this thing on my heart, and I have to act on this. So, Lord, teach me how to act on this. A God-ordained vision will eventually feel like a moral imperative. The second thing is that a God-ordained vision will be in line with what God is up to in the world. God laid a burden on Nehemiah's heart because there was a need. He wasn't saying, hey, Nehemiah, go to Jerusalem, build up the walls. If the walls were built, the walls needed building. There was a need, and God called Nehemiah. God was aware of what was going on in Jerusalem, in the people's hearts. He saw a need there, and it wasn't just the walls of the city, it was the walls of their hearts, right? Because we're like Israel. Israel got excited, they're worshiping the Lord, and then they get distracted by these other things, and then God would bring in oppressors. And then there would be a time of captivity, and then they would repent, and they'd say, God, we've sinned. And that's, again, so much of what Nehemiah is about is that heart of, God, we've sinned. I know we've made a mistake. Lord, restore us. We don't want to be living in our sin anymore, and God does. And then we go back to our sins, and it's, again, that cycle, and we're seeing that here with the people. But God saw the state of the city. God saw the state of the hearts of the people, and he knew that there was a need, so he called Nehemiah. We don't see that bigger picture that he does. And so sometimes when we receive a vision, sometimes it can be difficult. We can question, well, God, how is this relevant? In the large scheme of things, that's what we always want to see, right? Is the big picture. Again, going back to Billy Graham, as a young man, he was tending farmland, and milking cows. If you had come up and told him as a young man, look at the big picture of what God wants to do with your life, he'd probably be pretty shocked. Someone came up to me and said, that I was going to do anything on any scale like what Billy Graham did. It would be quite incredible to hear that, right? And so sometimes it's in those little things that God is asking us to do that we don't realize that he's working on molding your heart into the man or woman that he wants you to be so that you can achieve this greater vision. An example could be, if God is just calling you, as a wife to come alongside and support your husband, it's like, well, this is such a simple thing. That's part of being married, right? Well, what if that husband really needs that encouragement right now because God is trying to put something in his heart and he's trying to give him this vision, he's trying to grow, but he's facing opposition. Again, it seems like such a small thing, but God is using each person in their part because he wants to glorify his work, his vision. Maybe he has you cleaning toilets. A lot of pastors have started by cleaning toilets at some point in their lives, as janitors or, whatever. And those are moments where you're like, God, this is, for one, humbling, but is this it? What's next? What's the big picture? I want to see the big picture. Nehemiah was a cupbearer for the king. He had the responsibility of drinking the wine and finding out if it was going to kill him or not. But God wanted to use him for more than that. Nehemiah was the cupbearer to the king, but God put a vision on his heart, and he stirred his heart. And again, it was that moral imperative of, I have to do this. I have to pursue this. He had a chapter as a cupbearer, but God eventually freed him from that to pursue his vision. And that ties in with what we were talking about before of just being patient and waiting in the Lord, because sometimes we need those moments as cupbearers or janitors. Sometimes we need those moments where we're down and just saying, okay, God, I don't know what's ahead. I can't see the picture, but you do. And that's got to be enough for me today. I could go on and on about different examples, but the point is that, again, God sees the big picture that we don't. God sees the visions that your vision could inspire. And that's another awesome thought. We never know to what scale God can use us. At the end of the Billy Graham library, as you're on your way out, you're in this room, the last room, and they give you an opportunity for an altar call, and they give you a little card, and then there's a prayer room if you want to discuss what that means and you want to pray with someone. And Billy Graham's not even here anymore, and people are getting saved from that, And how incredible would that be if one of us could say that? God, even after I'm done, even after I'm gone from this world, you're still using me to glorify you, to bring people to you. Isn't that the cry of our hearts today? So now what? What do we do while we wait? This is going to be our closing section here tonight. Because while we're waiting, we need to investigate. Learn as much as you can learn. Again, we're trying to grow, but read your Bible. Spend time in prayer. Spend time in fellowship. You're interested in a specific ministry? Talk to people who have experience in that ministry. Investigate. See what it takes to walk in those shoes that you're praying about. And you see these opportunities, you say, this is great. You want to learn as much as you can learn about that thing. And I think that is pretty common sense to most of us. If you've never flown before, what do? You pull out your phone or your computer, whatever, and you look up, what are some essential things to bring on an airplane? What do I need to do to be prepared for this? And in the same way with our vision, we see these things and we feel like God has put something on our heart, then we need to seek, okay, God, what do you need to do? What do I need to do to be prepared for that? Because when I get out there and the world is going to attack me, I want to be ready to respond to that. Investigation can accomplish one of three things. The first, as you investigate, it may confirm the divine origin of your vision. As you spend time and you seek and you pray and you say, God, is this what you're wanting to do in my life? Is this really you, or am I just making a bigger deal of this? Am I, just coming up with good ideas, or is this a God idea? As you seek to answer that question, God can tell you, I am speaking to your heart. I don't want you to run away from this. I am moving right now, and I'm moving in your heart, and I don't want you to back away because I have plans for you. And we know in Jeremiah that those plans are good, right? The second thing that could happen is it may give further definition and focus to your vision. That kind of goes back on the example of planting a church that I talked about before. First you could get a vision, and it's this great vision, but it can kind of be a broad vision. And then as you seek God and you talk to other people and you learn what it takes to pursue that ministry or that thing that God has put on your heart, as you learn, God can fine tune and he can give you a more specific vision and say, you know what, I want you to go to this city and I want you to plant it in this district, and I'm going to have 10 people there for every Sunday morning until it grows beyond that point. God can start to give you a better picture and a better focus. And the third possible outcome as you investigate and you say, God, is this something that you want to do? Is it may show you that you were wrong about the vision all along. You're praying about it. You said, God, I don't believe that was of you. Maybe I was just getting really excited about something and I rushed into something, and I see this awesome work that God is using that person in, and that's wonderful. But I don't believe that that's what you have for me. I believe that you're wanting to do something different in me. And if that's the case, that's fine. You walk away from it. Remember, we're trying to distinguish between what's a good idea and what is a God idea. If God's not behind it, if that's not God's intention for your life, then we don't need to dedicate our entire lives to that thing. We say, okay, God, I'll take a step back and I'll continue to seek you and see what it is that you're wanting to do next. The main statement of tonight's message that I want to get across is this, is that vision demands change. It looks at the world around us and it says, this isn't okay. We need to bring about change. And God can use you in really big ways, or he can use you as something as small as, cleaning a toilet. My father-in-law was in, I don't remember, it was either a gas station or a convenience store or something, and this was when Rachel was really little, and she and her brother and maybe her little sister were there, and they were just running around being goofy kids. And somebody came up to Jeff and they said, "How dare you? How dare you bring children into this world the way that it is?" And he turned to the person and he smiled and he said, "Mister, the world needs more people like my kids." And that's such an awesome message, and it's blessed me because, you look at that and the world is so tough. But, like that statement, the world needs more people like my kids. As parents, we want to raise our kids so that the world would be a better place, right? And we want to live that example in our lives. God, that we would be bringing change to our communities, that people would look and say, "You're doing something to further the gospel of Jesus Christ." The world needs you and it needs me. It needs us to shine the light when all we can see is darkness, because sometimes that's all we can see is darkness. But we have that encouragement when we see God using the other people. God desires to use us, and he has given each of us specific visions for how he wants to use you to help change the world. So Lord, I just want to close tonight, the time of worship. God, we thank you for, again, the privilege that it is that you desire to use us. We can be so silly, so foolish sometimes, and we're not aware of the things that you're wanting to do in our lives sometimes. Sometimes we just get so caught up in our everyday life that we forget to take a step back and ask, God, what do you want to do? So Lord, we want to reflect on that tonight. As we sing this last song, God, I pray that you would just move us. God, if there's something that you're trying to speak to anyone in this room, God, that you would meet them right where they're at. God, we want to be burdened. We don't want to just go with the flow. We don't want to be conformed to the ways of this world, but we want to be transformed by the renewing of our minds. We do that by studying you, Lord, by seeking you in times of worship or seeking you in your word. Lord, we just want to lay all of this down at your feet, and we want to surrender and say, God, whatever it is you want to, however you want to use me, here I am, Lord, use me. God, we thank you again for desiring to use us. You're so good, and we could never earn your goodness. So Lord, we just thank you and we praise you tonight.
I lean not on my own understanding. My life is in the hands of the Maker of heaven. I lean not on my own understanding. My life is in the hands of the Maker of heaven. I lean not on my own understanding. My life is in the hands of the Maker of heaven. I lean not on my own understanding. My life is in the hands of the Maker of heaven. I give it all to you, God, trusting that you'll make something beautiful out of me. I give it all to you, God, trusting that you'll make something beautiful out of me. mountain with my hands wide open. I will climb this mountain with my hands wide open. I will climb this mountain with my hands wide open. I will climb this mountain with my hands wide. There's nothing I hold on to. 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 Holding on to you. Sing it together, I lean. So I lean not on my own understanding. My life is in the hands of the Maker of heaven. I lean not on my own understanding. My life is in the hands of the Maker of heaven. So I give it all to you, God, trusting that you'll make something beautiful out of me. So I give it all to you, God, trusting that you'll make something